kiss at midnight changed everything. Iris thought he was just another lonely stranger at a New Year's party, until his eyes shifted colors and the temperature around them went haywire. Now she's running for her life from supernatural forces that want her dead, protected by the very assassin who was hired to kill her. Rafe is a 200-year-old Nephilim, half angel and half demon, torn between two screaming voices in his head that have tortured him for centuries. But when he's near Iris, the voices stop. She's a null, a human weapon designed to strip away supernatural powers, and her bloodline was supposed to be extinct. The councils want her eliminated before she can expose their secret world. An ancient entity wants to possess her body for eternal resurrection. And Rafe has 72 hours to decide, complete his contract, and kill the only person who's ever made him feel human, or become a fugitive and lose everything he spent 2 centuries building. But as they uncover a conspiracy that spans millennia, they realize Iris's parents didn't just disappear 17 years ago. They were murdered as part of a summoning ritual. And the thing that killed them is coming back to finish what it started. In a world where love means exile and trust means death, 2 people marked for execution will have to choose. Follow the rules that enslave them, or burn the entire system down and build something new from the ashes. Because sometimes the only way to survive impossible odds is to become impossible yourself. The contract came through at 11:47 p.m. on New Year's Eve, which meant Rafe had exactly 72 hours to complete it, or they'd send someone else. Someone messier. Someone who wouldn't bother checking if the target actually deserved it. He stared at the photograph on his phone. Iris Fontana, 29, freelance investigative journalist. Dark hair pulled into a perpetual ponytail, eyes that looked tired even in professional headshots, the kind of lean build that came from forgetting to eat when chasing a story. Pretty in that sharp, unaware way. Dangerous in the way that mattered. The file was thin. Too thin. 3 months of investigating unexplained disappearances in the Northeast Corridor, 2 articles published that got a little too close to naming names, 1 interview request sent to a deceased cult leader's family that triggered alarms in the Celestial Network. The job posting was clinical. Eliminate before exposure. Confirmed. Null signature. Discretion mandatory. Null. That changed things. Rafe had killed 43 people in 203 years. He'd stopped counting the non-humans after the 1st century. Every single one had been vetted, cross-referenced, verified as genuine threats to the balance. Humans who'd seen too much and refused memory wipes. Rogue Nephilim who'd gone feral. Demons who'd broken contracts and started feeding indiscriminately. He was good at his job because he never questioned it. The Celestial Council paid an absolution, 1 execution at a time, and his angelic side clung to that promise like a drowning man clings to driftwood. But null signatures were rare. Born maybe once every 3 generations, humans whose very existence created dead zones in supernatural fields. Walk within 10 feet, and every spell fizzled, every compulsion shattered, every carefully maintained illusion cracked like glass. They were living antimatter to the occult world, and according to protocol, they were supposed to be identified and contained as children, raised in sanctuaries where they couldn't accidentally expose things that needed to stay hidden. This one had slipped through, lived 29 years without anyone noticing, which meant either she was weak enough to be harmless, or strong enough that every supernatural creature in the tri-state area had been unconsciously avoiding her for decades. He needed 24 hours to decide which. The party was in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, the kind of New Year's Eve gathering where grad students and young professionals pretended they were still in college. Rafe arrived at 11:15, dressed in dark jeans and a leather jacket that hid the silver scars running up his left forearm. His illusion was locked tight tonight, burning through energy reserves to keep both eyes the same color, keep his shadow synchronized, keep the faint smell of ozone and copper that clung to his skin masked under cologne. He spotted her. Immediately. She was standing near the makeshift bar, nursing what looked like whiskey, scrolling through her phone with the desperate focus of someone avoiding small talk. Everything about her screamed discomfort. Wrong shoes for a party. Jacket still on. Shoulder bag clutched like a shield. Rafe grabbed a beer he wouldn't drink and positioned himself 6 feet away. Close enough to observe. Far enough that if she really was Null, he'd feel it before she noticed him. Nothing happened. He waited. Supernatural senses straining. Angelic side reaching out with threads of awareness. Demonic side tasting the air for power signatures. The party thrummed around him, bass vibrating through the concrete floor. Someone screaming lyrics off-key. A couple making out aggressively near the bathroom. Normal, mundane, human chaos. Then Iris shifted her weight, turned slightly, and his entire left side went silent. Not numb, not blocked, just quiet. The constant war between angel and demon. The voices that had screamed in his head for 2 centuries. The push and pull of light and shadow that made every decision agony just stopped, like someone had hit mute on a television playing white noise at full volume. Rafe's breath caught. His hand tightened on the beer bottle hard enough that it should have shattered. For the first time since his awakening at age 17, when his Nephilim blood had activated and torn his humanity apart, he felt singular, whole. The angel wasn't clawing at his ribcage. The demon wasn't whispering poison. There was just him, standing in a Brooklyn warehouse, existing without warfare. It lasted 4 seconds. She turned back to her phone, stepped half a foot away, and the cacophony returned like a tidal wave. Rafe actually staggered, catching himself against the wall. Someone nearby laughed, assuming he was already drunk. He barely heard them over the sudden roar of his own fractured consciousness screaming for dominance again. He needed more. The plan had been simple. Observe for 24 hours, verify threat level, execute if necessary. Clean, professional. But standing there with the phantom memory of silence echoing in his skull, Rafe realized he'd been given an impossible job. Kill the only thing in 200 years that had made him feel human. Or let her live and abandon the only purpose that kept him from becoming the monster both halves of his blood wanted him to be. He crossed the distance between them in 4 strides. "You look like you'd rather be literally anywhere else," he said, leaning against the bar beside her. Close enough now that the silence crashed over him again, so profound it felt like drowning in reverse. His demonic side snarled and retreated. His angelic side simply quieted. Rafe fought to keep his expression neutral while his entire nervous system sang relief. Iris looked up, startled, then defensive. "That obvious? You're the only person here still wearing a coat." He gestured at her shoulder. "Bag. And that says I'm leaving the second it's socially acceptable." She almost smiled, didn't quite. "My coworker dragged me, said I needed to reconnect with life or whatever." Her eyes narrowed slightly, that journalist instinct kicking in. "You don't look like you're having fun either." "I'm working," Rafe said. It wasn't entirely a lie. "On New Year's Eve?" "Photographer." The cover story rolled off his tongue smooth as silk, perfected over decades. "Freelance. Parties are good for portfolio building." Iris studied him for a beat too long, and Rafe felt exposed despite 3 layers of illusion. Something about her gaze was too direct, too assessing, like she was trained to spot lies. Which she was. "You don't have a camera," she finally said. "Damn. Phone's good enough these days." She didn't believe him but let it go, turning back to her whiskey. "Well, I'm not interesting enough to photograph. Try the couple by the bathroom. They're about 2 minutes from public." Indecency. He should have walked away then. Reported back that the target was low-level Null, harmless, easily monitored. Should have let the council decide she wasn't worth the risk of execution. Should have preserved this accidental gift, this walking sanctuary, by keeping distance and staying professional. Instead, Rafe stayed exactly where he was, drowning in the silence she created, and asked, "What do you do?" When you're not being dragged to parties. She gave him a sideways look, suspicious of genuine interest. I'm a journalist. Investigative stuff mostly. Probably sounds boring. What are you investigating now? Iris hesitated, fingers tightening on her glass. Missing persons case. String of disappearances over the last 8 months. Police say they're unrelated, but the pattern's too consistent. Her voice dropped, professional armor sliding into place. 7 people. All last seen near abandoned properties. All reported hearing voices before they vanished. Rafe's blood went cold. He knew this case. He'd closed 4 of those 7 himself. Demons who'd broken feeding contracts and started hunting indiscriminately. The other 3 had been handled by another contractor before Rafe took over the territory. Clean jobs, necessary eliminations. Bodies dissolved, evidence erased, balance maintained. And here was Iris Fontana, pulling at threads that would unravel everything. Sounds dangerous, he managed, voice level despite the demonic side suddenly roaring back to. Awareness, screaming at him to finish this now, snap her neck, make it look like she'd had too much to drink and fallen wrong. It is, she agreed. Then she smiled, small and sad. That's kind of the point. The countdown started somewhere in the warehouse, people screaming numbers backward from 60. Rafe stood frozen in his pocket of silence, weighing 2 centuries of purpose against 4 minutes of peace. 10, 9, 8. Iris straightened, setting her empty glass down. Well, that's my cue. Have to at least pretend I celebrated before I disappear. 7, 6, 5. She turned to leave. Rafe's hand shot out, catching her wrist. She froze. He felt her pulse jump under his fingers, rapid and human, and so fragile he could end it with one thought. 4, 3, 2. Stay, he said. Didn't know which side was talking. Didn't care. 1. Happy New Year. Iris looked at him, really looked, and something in her expression shifted. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was the same inexplicable pull he felt, that gravitational force nulls created by accident, vacuums that drew supernatural creatures in even as they rendered them powerless. She kissed him. Rafe's illusion shattered. The kiss lasted 3 seconds, long enough for Rafe's carefully constructed illusion to fracture like ice under pressure, long enough for his left eye to flare silver white while his right burned amber dark, long enough for the temperature around them to spike 10 degrees. As his angelic side surged in alarm, then plummet 15 as his demonic side reacted with possessive fury. Long enough for Iris to feel it. She pulled back, eyes wide, hand flying to her mouth. Around them, the crowd was cheering, embracing, screaming Happy New Year into each other's faces. Confetti fell from somewhere. A terrible pop song blasted through speakers. Nobody was paying attention to the 2 people standing frozen by the bar, staring at each other like the world had just tilted off its axis, which, for Rafe, it had. Your eyes, Iris whispered. Her voice was shaking, not with fear, with that specific tremor of someone whose worldview was actively cracking. They were different colors. Just for a second they were... Trick of the light, Rafe said automatically. His illusion was slamming back into place, burning through reserves, knitting together the cracks. Both eyes gray again. Shadow synchronized. Temperature normal. But his hands were trembling and he couldn't make them stop. 203 years of perfect control, and 1 accidental kiss from a null had shredded it like tissue paper. Iris took a step back. Then another. Her journalist brain was working overtime. He could see it happening, cataloging details she shouldn't be able to perceive. No, that wasn't... You felt wrong. Cold and hot at the same time. And there was this smell, like... She stopped, pressing fingers to her temple. Like ozone. After lightning. Rafe's demonic side was, screaming at him to fix this. Compel her. Make her forget. Except compulsion didn't work on nulls, and even if it did, she was still within her dead zone radius. He was functionally human right now. Stronger than baseline, faster, more durable, but without access to the supernatural toolkit that made problems like this disappear. "You've had too much to drink," he tried, voice gentle, taking half a step toward her. "It's loud in here. You're disoriented." "Don't." Iris's hand went to her bag. Reflexive, protective gesture. "I know what I saw. I know what I felt." Her eyes were locked on his face, searching. "Who are you?" The honest answer would get her killed. Either by him, right now, or by Serial when the Angel Enforcer came to collect on the failed contract. The lie would buy him time, let him shadow her properly, figure out how much damage this had done, and whether containment was still possible without execution. But standing there in the pocket of silence she created, feeling singular and whole and more human than he'd been in centuries, Rafe found he didn't want to lie. "Someone who shouldn't be here," he said finally, "and neither should you." That was the wrong thing to say. Iris's expression shifted from confused to alert, that predatory focus journalists got when they smelled a real story. "What does that mean? Are you connected to the disappearances? Is that why you asked about my investigation?" "Yes," he wanted to say. "I killed 4 of your missing persons." Because they weren't persons anymore. They were demons wearing human skin and feeding on college students. I killed them in abandoned warehouses and dissolved their bodies in sanctified salt, and reported the jobs complete to a council of angels who've been manipulating human events since before your civilization learned to write. "No," he said instead, "but the people you're looking for, you're not going to find them. And digging deeper is going to get you hurt." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning." Rafe could feel his window closing. Other partygoers were starting to filter past them, heading for coat checks and ride shares, dragging the real world back into this moment. "Go home, Iris. Drop the case. Forget you saw anything tonight." He turned to leave. Made it exactly 4 steps before her voice stopped him. "I watched my parents disappear when I was 12. Rafe froze. "Police said they abandoned me, that they'd been planning it, that there was evidence of financial trouble, and marital problems, and intent to start over somewhere else." Iris's voice was flat, controlled, the tone of someone who'd told the story enough times that it had calcified into armor. "But I was there. I heard my mom scream. I heard something that wasn't human answer her. And then there was just silence and empty rooms, and cops telling me I was traumatized, imagining things." Slowly, Rafe turned back. She was standing with her shoulders squared, chin up, daring him to dismiss her the way everyone else clearly had. "So, no," she continued. "I'm not going to go home and drop the case and forget. I've spent 17 years being told I'm crazy, that what I heard wasn't real, that monsters don't exist. And then you show up with your impossible eyes and your wrong temperature, and you smell like a thunderstorm, and you're telling me to stop looking." Her laugh was bitter. "That just means I'm finally looking in the right direction." The pieces clicked together in Rafe's head with sickening clarity. 12 years old. Parents vanishing. Something not human. That would have been 2008. Right in the middle of the territorial war between the Aureus faction and the Celestial Purge squads. Hundreds of demons and Nephilim had died in that purge. Hundreds of humans had been collateral damage. There was a 60% chance Rafe himself had killed her parents. Not intentionally, not personally, but he'd been active in the Northeast Corridor then, taking contracts. From Serial's predecessor, eliminating targets marked as corrupted. Sometimes entire families got marked if the demonic contamination had spread through blood. Protocol was scorched earth. No witnesses. No survivors. Except there had been a survivor. One 12-year-old girl with an undiscovered null signature strong enough that the purge squads had unconsciously avoided her, left her alive without realizing why. And now she was standing in front of him, investigating the same kind of Disappearances, pulling at the same threads, walking the same path that had gotten her parents erased. "You need to leave," Rafe said. His voice came out rough, scraped raw. "Right now. This party, this city, this entire line of investigation. Get on a plane tomorrow and don't come back." "Why?" Iris challenged. "What happens if I don't?" The truth sat on his tongue like poison. "They'll send me to kill you. Or someone worse. You're 68 hours away from execution and I'm the only thing standing between you and a celestial hit squad. And the only reason I haven't done it myself is because you make the voices stop, and I'm too selfish to give that up yet. You'll end up like your parents," he said instead. It was the worst possible thing he could have said. Iris's face went white, then red. She closed the distance between them in 3 strides and shoved him, hard enough that he actually rocked back a step. "How do you know about my parents?" Her voice was shaking with fury now. "I didn't tell you their names. I didn't say they disappeared or died or anything specific. I just said they were gone. So how the hell do you know?" Rafe's mind raced. The demon side wanted to grab her, drag her somewhere private, make this problem disappear permanently. The angel side wanted to tell her everything, confess every sin, beg forgiveness for crimes she didn't even know he'd committed yet. The human part that only existed in her presence just wanted to keep feeling this quiet for as long as possible. "Because I know what's hunting in this city," he said carefully. "And I know what it does to people who get too close." "Then tell me." Iris's hands were fists at her sides. "If you actually want to help, if this is really a warning and not just some cryptic bullshit, then tell me what I'm dealing with." A group of drunk 20-somethings stumbled past, laughing, breaking the tension. Rafe caught Iris's elbow, gentler this time, and steered her toward the exit. She didn't pull. Away. Outside, the January air was sharp enough to hurt, crystalline and clean. The warehouse district was mostly empty at this hour, just scattered clusters of partygoers heading for warmer venues. Rafe walked them half a block before speaking. "You're not going to believe me. Try me. I just watched your eyes change color and felt you turn into a space heater and a freezer simultaneously." Fair point. Rafe stopped under a streetlight, turning to face her. This close, the null effect was overwhelming. His senses dulled to human baseline. The constant supernatural awareness that had kept him alive for 2 centuries just gone. He was flying blind, and it felt like freedom. "There are things that live in the spaces between what people believe is real," he started. Stopped. Tried again. "The disappearances you're investigating, the people aren't missing. They're dead. They were killed by creatures that shouldn't exist, according to every rational framework you have. And those creatures, they operate under rules and hierarchies that humans aren't supposed to know about." Iris was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. "Creatures. Some people call them demons. Some call them angels. Most of the names are wrong." Rafe's jaw tightened. "The point is, there's a whole hidden world, and it stays hidden because people who find it tend to disappear. Permanently. And you're part of this world." It wasn't a question. Rafe nodded slowly. "What are you?" The answer stuck in his throat. "Nephilim. Abomination. Half-breed. Murder weapon shaped like a man. 200 years of killing dressed up as justice. Something that shouldn't exist," he said finally. Iris didn't run. That was the first surprise. Most humans, when confronted with the reality of the supernatural, either fled or broke. Their minds couldn't reconcile the impossible with the mundane, so they fractured or fabricated rational explanations that let them sleep at night. Fight or flight. With flight winning 90% of the time. Instead, she pulled out her phone. "What are you doing?" Rafe asked, tensing. "Voice memo." Iris held up the device, thumb hovering over the record button. "You're going to tell me everything, and I'm going to document it. That's how this works. I ask questions, you give answers. and we figure out what happened to those 7 people. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? Her eyes were fierce in the streetlight, that journalistic hunger, overriding self-preservation. You tell me monsters are real, that they're killing people, that I'm in danger, and then what? I just go home and pretend my entire worldview didn't just implode? Pretend I didn't feel you change when we kissed? She stepped closer, into the null radius that made Rafe's supernatural senses white out. I've spent 17 years being gaslit about what I heard the night my parents disappeared. You don't get to do the same thing with a different script. Rafe's demonic side was screaming. 66 hours left on the contract. Every second he spent with her was a second closer to Serial showing up personally to finish the job. The smart play was to walk away, let her investigate, intercept her before she got close enough to real danger, then make it quick and clean. But standing in her silence, feeling almost human, he found himself saying, "Okay." Iris blinked. "Okay? You want to investigate together, fine. But we do it my way. You follow my lead. You don't publish anything without clearing it with me first. And if I say run, you run." Rafe knew he was making a catastrophic mistake. Knew the angel side would guilt him later. The demon side would mock him for weakness. Didn't care. Deal? She studied him for a long moment, weighing risk against reward. Then nodded. Deal. But I want answers first. Starting with what you are. They walked. It was easier to talk while moving, easier to pretend this was a normal conversation between my normal people. Rafe led them toward the waterfront, where the city lights reflected off the East River in shimmering columns. At 2 a.m. on New Year's Day, the industrial stretch was deserted except for the occasional delivery truck. "You know the biblical story of the Nephilim?" Rafe asked. "Giants born when angels mated with humans?" "Vaguely. Old Testament stuff. Most of it's propaganda, but the basic concept is real. Angels exist. Demons exist. Sometimes they reproduce with humans, and the offspring are called Nephilim." He watched her process that, saw the skepticism war with what she'd witnessed. "We inherit traits from both bloodlines, powers, instincts, and a fun little bonus called duality, where both halves of our nature fight for dominance every second of every day. That's what I felt," Iris said slowly, "when we kissed. 2 different temperatures, 2 different..." She stopped walking. "Your eyes. One was angelic, one was demonic. Gold and black, yeah." Rafe kept his voice neutral. "Most of the time I can hide it with illusion. Costs energy, but it's worth it to pass as human. Except illusions don't work around you." "Why not?" "Because you're what's called a null. Born with a genetic quirk that creates dead zones in supernatural fields. Any magic or power within about 10 feet of you just stops working." He gestured at the space between them. "Right now, I'm functionally human, stronger and faster than baseline, harder to kill, but I can't access anything supernatural. No compulsion, no enhanced senses, no illusion. You're a walking antimatter bomb to my world." Iris absorbed that. "Is that why things have always felt different around me? Why I never quite fit in? Why people seemed uncomfortable without knowing why?" "Probably. Most supernatural creatures avoid nulls instinctively. We don't even realize we're doing it. We just feel wrong around you and make excuses to leave." Rafe's jaw tightened. "Which is why it's unusual that you made it to 29 without being identified." "Identified by who?" "The councils, angelic and demonic factions that govern the supernatural world. They're supposed to find nulls as children and raise them in sanctuaries, where they can't accidentally expose things that need to stay hidden." He watched her expression close off. "You slipped through the cracks. Lucky, until now. And now?" Rafe didn't answer immediately. They'd reached a fence overlooking the river, graffitied metal. Chain link that rattled in the wind. He gripped it with both hands, staring at the water. "Now you're investigating disappearances that were sanctioned executions. writing articles that ask the wrong questions, getting close enough to the truth that you've triggered alarms. So they sent someone to fix the problem. Fix it how? Permanently. The silence stretched. Iris was smart enough to understand subtext. When she spoke again, her voice was carefully controlled. They sent you to kill me. It wasn't a question, but Rafe nodded anyway. 72-hour contract. Started about 3 hours ago when I accepted the job. If I don't complete it, they'll send someone else. Someone who won't bother checking if you actually deserve it first. And do I? Iris asked. Deserve it? Rafe turned to face her. Her expression was unreadable, that professional mask journalists wore when interviewing subjects about traumatic events. But her hands were shaking slightly, betraying the fear. Underneath. No, he said. You're guilty of asking questions and having a genetic condition you didn't choose. That's not a death sentence in any sane system. His voice dropped. But the supernatural world isn't sane. It's survival. Balance. The needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few. And one human exposing our existence could trigger a purge that kills thousands. So I die to protect the secret. That's the theory. Iris laughed, sharp and bitter. And you're what? Having a crisis of conscience? The supernatural hitman with a heart of gold? I'm having a crisis of silence, Rafe corrected. For 203 years, I've had two voices screaming in my head. Angel and demon, fighting over every decision, every thought, every breath. It's like living in a war zone inside your own skull. Except when I'm near you. He gestured at the space between them. You make it stop. For the first time in 2 centuries, I feel singular. Whole. And I'm selfish enough that I don't want to give that up yet. The honesty hung between them, raw and uncomfortable. Iris processed it, chewing her bottom lip. So your plan is what? Keep me alive because I'm useful to you? My plan is to buy time. Figure out if there's a way to keep you alive that doesn't involve me becoming a fugitive. Rafe pushed off the fence. Which means we need to deal with your investigation. The disappearances you're tracking. I need to know everything you found. Iris hesitated, then pulled. Out her phone for real this time. Opened a notes app filled with dense text. 7 missing persons over 8 months, ages 19 to 43. 3 men, 4 women. No obvious connection except geography. All last seen within a 5-mile radius of this industrial district. She scrolled. 4 of them reported hearing voices in the weeks before they vanished. 2 had documented mental health struggles that authorities used to dismiss their cases. The last one, Marcus Webb, disappeared 6 days ago after posting about meeting someone who understood the truth. Rafe's blood went cold. Marcus Webb. He'd killed Marcus Webb himself. The target had been a mid-level demon who'd been possessing the human for 3 months, feeding on his memories and personality until nothing of the original remained. The job had been clean. Lured to an abandoned subway station, dispelled back to its home dimension. Body dissolved in sanctified salt. No trace. No witnesses. Except now Iris had a file on Sanu. Him. Marcus was possessed, Rafe said carefully. By the time I found him, there wasn't anything human left to save. I didn't kill a person. I killed something wearing a person's face. You killed him. Iris's voice was flat. I killed what he'd become. And the others? The 3 men and 4 women who disappeared? She looked at him with something that might have been disgust, or might have been desperate hope. Were they all possessed too? All conveniently not human anymore? 4 of them were. The other 3 were handled by a different contractor before I took over the territory. I don't know their specifics. Rafe met her eyes. But the contractors in this region don't take unjustified hits. We're not serial killers, Iris. We're exterminators. We remove threats. Who decides what's a threat? The councils. Angelic primarily, demonic occasionally. They have protocols, hierarchies, rules of engagement. It's not perfect, but it's better than the alternative. Which is? Demons. Feeding openly. Angels purging entire bloodlines. Nephilim going feral and leveling city blocks. Rafe's voice hardened. The system is broken and brutal, but it keeps 7 billion humans from knowing that monsters are real. Sometimes that means collateral damage. Sometimes that means people like Marcus Webb die because we're too late to save them. Iris was quiet for a long time, staring at her phone. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. My parents. Were they possessed? Rafe wanted to lie. Wanted to tell her they'd been innocent casualties. Wrong place, wrong time. But she deserved truth, even if it destroyed her. I don't know, he said. I was active during the purge that probably killed them, but I didn't keep detailed records back then. If they were marked for termination, it would have been because someone in the angelic chain of command flagged them as compromised. Possessed, corrupted, or knowledgeable enough to be dangerous. So they might have been innocent. They might have been. Iris's hands were fists now, knuckles white. And you just followed orders, killed people because someone told you they deserved it. Yes. How many? 43 humans. Several hundred non-humans. Jesus Christ. Iris turned away, shoulders rigid. For a long moment, Rafe thought she'd walk away, call the police, do something rational that would force him to contain the situation messily. Instead, she turned back, eyes blazing. I want to see them. The places where these people disappeared. I want to understand what you do, what this world is. And then I'll decide if you're a monster or just someone trying not to be. The abandoned subway station where Rafe had killed Marcus Webb sat 3 levels below street access, reached through a maintenance entrance that hadn't been locked properly in 15 years. Iris followed him down rusted stairs that groaned under their weight, her phone flashlight cutting through darkness that felt thick enough to touch. This is where he died? She asked. Her voice echoed off tile walls covered in decades of graffiti and water damage. Where the demon wearing him was dispelled, yeah? Rafe's enhanced vision pierced the shadows easily, even dampened by her null field. He could still see the scorch marks on the platform where sanctified salt had burned through demonic essence. To human eyes, it probably looked like old fire damage. 6 days ago, 2:30 in the morning. Iris swept her flashlight across the platform, documenting everything with her journalist's eye for detail. How did you lure him here? Texted from a burner phone. Said I had information about the voices he'd been hearing. Rafe leaned against a support column, watching her work. Possessed humans are drawn to others who acknowledge the supernatural. Makes them feel less crazy. It's a vulnerability we exploit. We. Iris stopped moving. You keep saying we. How many of you are there? Contractors? Maybe 200 active worldwide. Nephilim specifically? No one knows. We're not big on census taking. He gestured at the platform. Most of us work alone. Safer that way. Less chance of exposure. Less political entanglement. Iris crouched near the scorch marks, running fingers close to but not touching the concrete. What did he say? Marcus, before you killed him. Rafe's jaw tightened. He didn't. The demon did. Threatened to expose the entire Northeast Corridor network if I dispelled it. Said it had insurance. Dead man's. Switches. Evidence cached in a dozen locations. He paused. It was bluffing. They always bluff. How do you know? Because if it really had insurance, it would have used it already instead of making threats. Rafe pushed off the column, moving closer. The null effect intensified, that blissful silence wrapping around him. Demons lie, Iris. It's their nature. They feed on fear and chaos and deals made in desperation. You can't trust anything they say. But you trusted that it was lying. I verified. Checked Marcus's online presence, his storage units, his known associates. Nothing. Just a mid-level demon that got greedy and sloppy. He watched her process that. I don't kill on faith. I kill on evidence. Iris stood, brushing dust from her jeans. Her expression was unreadable in the flashlight's harsh glow. "Show me another one." They hit 3 more locations before dawn. An abandoned warehouse in Red Hook, where Rafe had eliminated a possessed woman who'd been luring runaway teens for demonic feeding. A parking garage in Dumbo where a Nephilim had gone feral and started attacking humans indiscriminately. A shuttered church in Brooklyn Heights where 2 demons had been running a contract mill, trading favors for souls. At each site, Iris asked questions with clinical precision. How did you find them? What was the evidence? How long did you watch before acting? Were there witnesses? How did you dispose of the bodies? Rafe answered everything, surprised by his own transparency. Maybe it was the silence she provided. Maybe it was 2 centuries of keeping secrets finally eroding. Maybe he just wanted someone to know the truth before Serial came to collect. By the time they emerged from the church, the sky was turning that particular shade of pre-dawn gray that made the city look almost clean. Iris sat on the church steps, scrolling through photos and voice memos on her phone. She'd been documenting everything with frightening efficiency. 4 of the 7, she said finally. You killed 4 of them. Killed what they'd become, Rafe corrected, sitting beside her. Not too close. Close enough. There's a difference. Is there? Iris looked at him. If someone gets possessed, loses themselves completely, is it mercy to kill the body? Or is it just convenient? It's triage. The person is already gone, consumed from the inside. Leaving the demon in place means more victims, more corruption spreading. So yes, we kill the body. Because the alternative is worse, says the person doing the killing. Rafe didn't have an answer for that. They sat in silence, watching the city wake up around them. Delivery trucks rumbling past. Early shift workers trudging toward subway stations. A whole city of humans living their lives, completely unaware that things like him moved through their world, making life or death decisions in the shadows. I need coffee, Iris said abruptly. And food. And about 6 hours to process what you've shown me. Is there somewhere we can go that's not a crime scene? Rafe's apartment was in Williamsburg, 4th floor of a converted factory, with views of the bridge. Minimalist in the way places got when the occupant never stayed long enough to accumulate belongings. Black couch, glass coffee table, kitchenette that looked unused. No photos, no art, nothing personal. Just clean lines and empty space. Iris stood in the doorway, taking it all in. This is depressing. It's functional. It's a monk's cell. She dropped her bag by the couch, moved to the window. How long have you lived here? 6 years. Maybe 7. Rafe moved to the kitchen, pulling out the coffee supplies he kept for the rare occasions he had visitors. Which was never. I don't really track time the way humans do. Because you're 200 years old. 203. I was 17 when I transitioned. Nephilim bloodlines activate in adolescence, usually triggered by trauma or extreme emotion. He measured. Grounds into the filter. Movements automatic. Mine activated when my human father tried to kill me after figuring out what my mother had been. Iris turned from the window. Your mother was an angel? Demon, actually. Low-level tempter. Nothing dramatic. She'd been wearing human form for decades. Married my father legitimately. Lived a normal suburban life. Then I hit puberty and started showing signs, and she had to choose between her cover and her son. Rafe's voice was flat, reciting facts. She chose her cover. Told my father I was an abomination that needed to be cleansed. He agreed. Jesus, what happened? I killed him. The coffee maker started gurgling, filling the silence. Didn't mean to. Didn't know what I was. But when he came at me with a blessed knife, my demonic side took over and I ripped his throat out with my bare hands. Then my angelic side manifested, and I spent 3 days catatonic with guilt. By the time I came back to myself, I was something new. Something wrong. Iris was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. That's when the voices started. That's when I stopped being singular, yeah. Angel and demon, both screaming for dominance, both convinced they're right. Took me about 40 years to learn to function without going insane. Another 100 to accept what I was and find purpose in it. He poured 2 mugs, handed her one. Killing for the councils isn't noble, but it's better than killing randomly. Gives the violent structure. Makes it almost bearable. Almost. Iris took the mug, warming her hands. Do you regret it? Any of it? Rafe thought about that. I regret my father. He was just a human who didn't understand what he'd gotten into. The others? He shook his head. Most of them were genuine threats. Demons. Feral Nephilim. Corrupted humans. The world's better without them. But there are jobs I've taken that keep me up during the day. Humans who'd been marked because they were inconvenient, not dangerous. I followed orders anyway because questioning meant losing my purpose. Like my parents. Maybe. Probably. He met her eyes. If I killed them, Iris, I'm sorry. It won't bring them back, and it doesn't excuse what I did. But I'm sorry. She was quiet for a long moment, holding the mug like a lifeline. When she spoke, her voice was rough. I want to hate you. You're admitting you might have murdered my parents, that you've killed 43 people, that you were sent to kill me. By every rational standard, I should be terrified, running, calling the police. But you make sense. Iris laughed, bitter and broken. You showed me evidence. You explained your reasoning. You admitted uncertainty and regret. You're the first person in 17 years who hasn't treated me like I'm crazy for thinking monsters are real. She set the mug down carefully. And I think that's what's actually terrifying. That the monster is more honest than anyone else I've ever met. Rafe didn't know what to say to that. They stood in his empty apartment. 2 people who shouldn't exist finding common ground in trauma and truth. Iris's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned. My editor wants to know if I'm making progress on the disappearances piece. She looked up at Rafe. What do I tell him? Tell him you're following a promising lead. Rafe moved closer, into the null radius that made everything quiet. You wanted to investigate together, so let's investigate. I'll show you the supernatural world, help you understand what's really happening. And maybe we'll find a way to keep you alive that doesn't involve either of us running forever. And if we don't, then at least you'll die knowing the truth instead of being gaslit about it. It was possibly the worst reassurance in history. Iris smiled anyway, small and sad. You're terrible at pep talks. 200 years of mostly killing things. Social skills aren't my strong suit. She laughed for real this time, just a breath of sound. Then her expression shifted, something uncertain crossing her features. Can I ask you something personal? When we kissed, was that real? The pull I felt, the connection? Or was it just the null effect? Rafe considered lying. Would have been kinder. But they'd built this fragile alliance on honesty, and he wasn't about to undermine it now. Both. The null effect creates a gravitational pull, draws supernatural creatures in even as it renders them powerless. But attraction? He held her. Gaze. That was real. Inconvenient and dangerous and completely real. Iris processed that. Stepped closer. Show me. Show you what? What you really look like. No illusions. Rafe's first instinct was to refuse. 2 centuries of hiding, of maintaining perfect control over the monster he'd become. Didn't just evaporate because someone asked nicely. But Iris was standing 3 feet away, looking at him with that unflinching journalist's stare. The one that said she'd already seen the worst and was ready for whatever came next. And the truth was, he was tired. Tired of the illusions. Tired of pretending to be something almost human. Tired of the constant energy drain required to mask what he really was. It's not pretty, he warned. I don't care. Rafe let the illusion drop. It happened in stages. First, his eyes shifted, left Iris bleeding to silver white that seemed to glow from within, right darkening to amber so deep it was almost black. Then the temperature around him. Destabilized. His left side radiating heat like standing too close to a fire. His right side dropping cold enough that frost formed on the window pane beside him. His shadow split, fracturing into two separate silhouettes that moved half a second out of sync with his body. But the worst part, the part that made humans instinctively recoil, was the veins. Dark lines spiderwebbed up his neck and jaw on the right side, pulsing with something that wasn't quite blood. On his left, faint silver scars, traced patterns that might have been angelic script, or might have been burn marks from divine fire. His face remained symmetrical, almost handsome if you could ignore the wrongness, but it was like looking at two different people stitched together at the center line. Iris didn't scream, didn't run. She stepped closer. "Can I touch you?" she asked. Rafe's breath caught. "Why would you want to?" "Because you've been telling me what you are. I want to understand what you feel like." She raised one hand, hesitant. "Is it safe?" "For you, yes. For me?" He managed something like a smile, though it looked wrong with mismatched eyes. "You make me more human than I've been in centuries. That's its own kind of dangerous." Iris placed her palm against the left side of his face, the angelic side. Her skin was cool against the heat radiating from him. Rafe held perfectly still, afraid any movement would break whatever was happening. Her touch was feather light, fingers tracing the silver scars that ran from temple to jaw. "These hurt?" she asked softly. "Not anymore. They're from the first time I tried to access angelic power. It burned through me like acid because the demonic half fought back." His voice was rough. "Took 3 days to heal. Left permanent marks." Iris's hand moved to the right side, the demonic side. The temperature shift must have been disorienting, going from furnace to freezer in seconds. She traced one of the dark veins pulsing beneath his skin. "And these?" "Corruption. Every time I use demonic power, it spreads a little further. Eventually, it'll reach my heart. When that happens, the angel side won't be strong enough to fight back anymore." He met her mismatched gaze with his own. "I'll go fully feral. Lose what's left of my humanity. Have to be put down like a rabid dog." "How long do you have?" 20 years. Maybe 30 if I'm careful." Rafe's jaw tightened under her palm. "It's why I take the contracts. Why I follow orders, the councils. Promised that if I serve long enough, prove myself valuable enough, they'll find a way to stabilize me. Angelic purification or demonic extraction or something. It's probably a lie, but it's the only hope I have." Iris was quiet, her hand still cradling his face. Then she did something that shattered him completely. She leaned forward and pressed her lips to one of the silver scars on his jaw, gentle as breathing. Rafe went rigid. "What are you doing?" "Kissing someone who's been alone for 200 years. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "You're not a monster, Rafe. You're just someone who's been hurt so badly that you forgot what kindness looks like. I've killed 43 people. You've killed 43 threats. There's a difference." Her thumb brushed his cheekbone. "And you're risking everything to keep me alive even though it would be easier to complete the contract and move on. That's not monstrous. That's human. I'm not human. You're human enough." The kiss was inevitable. Rafe knew it was a mistake even as he closed the distance, knew he was compromising the mission and endangering them both, and crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed. But her null field had silenced the voices that usually screamed warnings, and for the first time in 2 centuries, he felt like a person instead of a weapon, and he was too selfish to stop himself. Iris tasted like coffee and exhaustion, and something sweet he couldn't name. Her hands slid into his hair, pulling him closer. The temperature around them went haywire, spiking hot, then cold, then hot again, as his control fractured. His shadow writhed on the wall behind them, angel and demon both surging for dominance. But Iris just pressed closer, grounding him in the physical world. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Rafe's illusion was completely shredded. No point rebuilding it. Not with her. "This is a bad idea," he said. His voice came out wrecked. "Probably." Iris's pupils were blown wide, lips kiss-swollen. "But I've spent 17 years playing it safe and being reasonable and ignoring my instincts. Maybe it's time to make bad decisions." Rafe's phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. On the fourth buzz, he pulled away from Iris, jaw tight with frustration. The screen showed an unknown number, which meant either a new contract or something worse. He answered. "What?" 48 hours remaining. The voice was crystalline, neutral, utterly inhuman. "Serial. Status update required." Rafe's blood went cold. He turned away from Iris, lowering his voice. "Target located. Surveillance ongoing. Threat assessment in progress. Unnecessary delays suggest compromised objectivity." Serial's tone didn't change, but the threat underneath was unmistakable. "The null signature has been confirmed. Elimination protocols are clear. Complete the contract or explain why termination is unwarranted." "The target is low level," Rafe said carefully. "Null field. Barely extends 10 feet. She's investigating human disappearances, not supernatural operations. Her articles are speculative, no hard evidence. Containment is more cost-effective than elimination. Cost-effectiveness is not your concern. The Council has determined she poses unacceptable exposure risk." A pause. "Her genetic profile matches the Silencer bloodline. She is not random null. She is descended from the hunters who nearly exposed us in 1947. That alone warrants execution." Rafe's mind raced. Silencer bloodline. He'd heard whispers about them. Humans bred by a rogue angelic faction to hunt Nephilim. Genetically modified to project null fields that could strip away supernatural powers. The breeding program had been shut down 80 years ago. All known silencers eliminated. If Iris was descended from that line, her null field wasn't random mutation. It was weaponized genetics, which made her exponentially more dangerous than he'd realized. "Understood," he said. 24 hours. I'll have confirmation by then." 16 hours, Serial corrected. "Or I come personally, and I will be significantly less discriminating about collateral damage." The line went dead. Rafe stood frozen, phone clenched in his fist. Behind him, Iris was watching with growing alarm. "What's wrong?" she asked. He turned to face her, and whatever she saw in his expression made her step back. "Your parents. Do you know anything about their families? Grandparents? Great-grandparents? Any genealogy research?" "No." "Why?" "Because you're not just null. You're descended from a bloodline that was created specifically to hunt and kill things like me." Rafe's voice was flat. "Your genetic code is a weapon, Iris, and the Councils want it erased before it can be replicated." Iris went pale. "What does that mean?" "It means we have 16 hours to figure out how to keep you alive." He grabbed his jacket, mind already racing through options. "And it means..." Everything just got significantly more complicated. "Rafe, what are you..." "Getting you out of the city. Right now." He pulled her bag from where she'd dropped it, thrust it into her hands. "We need to move before Serial decides to bypass me entirely and handle this himself." "Who's Serial?" "The angel enforcer who gave me the contract. If he shows up, you die. I probably die. And anyone within 100 yards becomes collateral damage." Rafe grabbed his own go-bag from the closet. Always packed. Always ready. "So we're leaving. Now." Iris didn't move. "Where are we going?" "I don't know yet. Somewhere beyond the Council's immediate reach. Somewhere I can think." He turned to her, mismatched eyes blazing. "Please, Iris. I know you have questions. I know this is insane. But I need you to trust me for the next 16 hours. Can you do that?" She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but you're going to explain everything while we drive." They were out the door in 90 seconds flat. Rafe's car was parked 3 blocks away, a nondescript sedan that could have belonged to anyone. He threw their bags in the trunk, slid behind the wheel. Iris buckled in beside him, phone already out. "What are you doing?" Rafe asked, pulling into traffic. "Researching silencer bloodlines. If I'm supposedly descended from supernatural hunters, there has to be documentation somewhere." "There isn't. The councils purged all records when they shut down the program. Then I'll look for gaps, absences, census data that doesn't line up." Her fingers flew across the screen. "I'm an investigative journalist, Rafe. Finding hidden information is literally my job." Despite everything, Rafe felt something like admiration. Most humans would be catatonic by now. Iris was problem-solving. They were crossing the bridge when her phone rang. She checked the caller ID, frowned. "It's my editor again." "Don't answer." She answered anyway. "Hey, Tom, this really isn't a good..." Her expression changed. "What? When?" She listened, face draining of color. "Are you sure?" Okay, I'll be careful. Thanks for the heads up." She ended the call, hands shaking. "Someone broke into my apartment 3 hours ago, trashed the place, stole my laptop and external drives. All my research on the disappearances. Gone." Rafe's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "Serial's doing recon, figuring out how much you know, who you've told." He took the next exit too fast, tires squealing. "We need to ditch your phone, and mine. They're tracking us." "Tracking us how? I don't have any supernatural apps." "Doesn't matter. If Serial wants to find you, he'll find you." Rafe pulled into a gas station, grabbed both phones. "I'm sorry about this." He smashed them against the pavement, once, twice, until they were unrecognizable fragments. Iris watched with something between horror and resignation. "So now what?" she asked. "Now we disappear." Rafe got back in the car. "And we pray we can figure out a solution before Sariel figures out where we went." They drove north for 3 hours, ditching the sedan in a Walmart parking lot and stealing a pickup truck with out-of-state plates. Rafe knew it was a temporary solution at best. Sariel could track supernatural signatures, and even dampened by Iris's null field, Rafe still registered as Nephilim to anyone looking hard enough. But distance bought time, and time was the only currency they had left. The safe house was in the Adirondacks, a hunting cabin that belonged to a Nephilim Rafe had worked with decades ago. Gabriel had been executed by the councils 15 years back for refusing a contract, but he'd told Rafe about this place before he died. Off-grid, warded against tracking, stocked with supplies for exactly this kind of emergency. It was barely standing. Roof sagging, windows cracked, front porch rotted through in places. But when Rafe pressed his palm to the doorframe, the wards recognized him. Ancient symbols carved. Into the wood glowed faint gold, then faded. The lock clicked open. Inside smelled like mildew and abandonment. Dust covered every surface thick enough to write in. But the generator still worked, and when Rafe checked the cellar, the cache of weapons and supplies was untouched. Blessed ammunition, sanctified salt, iron chains, dried herbs for warding. Everything needed to fight off supernatural threats. Everything except a solution for what to do with Iris. She stood in the main room, taking in the decay with that journalist's eye for detail. Your friend had good taste in apocalypse bunkers. He was paranoid. Rightly so, as it turned out. Rafe was checking weapons, loading a shotgun with blessed rounds out of habit. The wards will hide us for maybe 12 hours. After that, Sariel will triangulate our position through process of elimination. So we need a plan before then. What kind of plan? Iris sat on the edge of a moth-eaten couch, exhaustion finally catching up to her. They'd been awake for nearly 24 hours straight. You said yourself the councils want me dead. That my bloodline makes me a weapon. What plan fixes that? Rafe set the shotgun down. There are 3 options. 1. I complete the contract, kill you, report back, resume normal operations. Hard pass. 2. We run. Fake your death, get you new identity, relocate you somewhere remote where the null signature won't attract attention. Nepal maybe, rural Alaska, somewhere the supernatural community doesn't operate. Iris was already shaking her head. That's not living. That's hiding for the rest of my life, looking over my shoulder, never knowing if today's the day they find me. Which leaves option 3. Rafe met her eyes. We go public. You publish everything I've told you, every location, every execution, every piece of evidence. Expose the supernatural world completely. Burn it all down. The silence that followed was suffocating. That would kill thousands. Iris said slowly. You said it yourself. Exposure triggers purges. Demons would feed openly. Angels would cleanse entire bloodlines. Nephilim would go to war. The body count would be catastrophic. Yes. So that's not actually an option. That's suicide wearing a different mask. She rubbed her face, fingers trembling. There has to be something else. Some way to prove I'm not a threat. That my bloodline doesn't matter. Your bloodline is all that matters. Rafe started pacing. Demonic side agitated. Angelic side spiraling into guilt. Without Iris's null field actively suppressing them, the voices were creeping back. The silencer program wasn't just about creating nulls. It was about weaponizing them. They were trained from childhood to hunt Nephilim specifically, using their null fields to strip away our powers before executing us with blessed weapons. Between 1935 and 1947, they killed over 200 of us. 200, Iris repeated numbly. The councils retaliated by hunting down every known silencer and their families. Men, women, children. Anyone with even a trace of the genetic modification. They called it containment. It was genocide. Rafe stopped pacing, standing in front of her. Your existence proves they missed someone. That the bloodline survived. And if one survived, others might have too. That terrifies them more than anything else. Iris looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. So I'm not dangerous because of what I've done. I'm dangerous because of what I might become. Or what your children might become, yes. The null gene is dominant. Any offspring would carry it. And if those offspring were trained, weaponized the way the original silencers were. Rafe trailed off. You're not just a person to them, Iris. You're a potential army. I don't want children, she said flatly. I don't even want a relationship. I'm perfectly happy dying alone surrounded by cats and Pulitzer nominations. That doesn't matter. The potential exists. Rafe crouched in front of her, bringing them eye level. His illusion was still down, mismatched eyes blazing in the dim light. And the councils don't take chances with existential threats. Iris was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was small. What if I agreed to sterilization? Genetic therapy to remove the null gene, make sure it can't be passed on. Would that be enough? No. The answer came from both sides simultaneously. Angel and demon agreeing for once. Because you'd still be null. Still able to strip powers from any supernatural creature who got close. Still a threat in your own right. So the only acceptable solution is my death. Rafe didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because she was right, and they both knew it. Iris laughed, bitter and broken. This is insane. 48 hours ago, my biggest problem was writer's block and whether to get bangs. Now I'm a genetic weapon descended from supernatural hunters, being hunted by an angel. Enforcer, protected by a Nephilim assassin who was supposed to kill me. She looked at him. How is this my life? I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. If I'd known what you were before I took the contract. What? You wouldn't have taken it? Iris's voice was sharp. Or you would have killed me faster before you got attached. I don't know. Rafe's jaw tightened. Probably the latter. Clean jobs are easier than complicated ones. Well, Congratulations. This is officially complicated as hell. She stood abruptly, moving to the window. Snow was starting to fall outside, fat flakes that turned the forest into something from a fairy tale. Can I ask you something? Always. When you kissed me, in your apartment, was that real? Or were you just buying time, keeping me compliant until you figured out what to do with me? Rafe was quiet for a beat too long. Iris's shoulders tensed. It was real, he said finally. Inconvenient, dangerous, tactically stupid, but real. You make the voices stop, Iris. You make me feel human. I haven't felt human since I was 17 years old. So yes, I kissed you because I wanted to, and I'm protecting you because I'm selfish enough to want to keep feeling this way for as long as possible. She turned back, eyes searching his face. Even if it costs you everything? Your purpose? Your hope for stabilization? Maybe your life? Even then, Iris crossed the distance between them in 3 strides and kissed him. Hard, desperate, like she was trying to pour 17 years of loneliness and fear into a single point of contact. Rafe caught her, pulling her closer, and for a few seconds the world narrowed to just this. Her mouth on his, her hands fisted in his jacket, the blessed silence of her null field drowning out every voice that told him this was wrong. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Iris pressed her forehead to his. I need to tell you something. Okay. The night my parents disappeared, the thing I heard, her voice was shaking. It said my name. It knew who I was. It said I was special, that I had power, that they'd come back for me when I was ready. She pulled back to meet his eyes. I always thought I imagined it. Trauma making me misremember. But what if I didn't? What if something marked me that night, knew what I was, even when I didn't? Rafe's blood went cold. Did it say what kind of power? It said I could make the monsters quiet. Iris's laugh was hollow. I thought it was trying to comfort me, saying monsters weren't real. But it meant literally, didn't it? It knew I was null. What else did it say? That I'd remember when the time was right. That I'd understand my purpose. She was trembling now. Rafe, what if this wasn't random? What if someone's been watching me my whole life, waiting for me to activate or discover what I am? Then we need to figure out who. Rafe's mind was racing. And why? Because if someone wanted you active, wanted you investigating, that means this entire situation might be orchestrated. He grabbed his phone, realized he'd destroyed it. Damn it. We need information and we can't risk going online from here. There's another option. Iris pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket pocket. Before my apartment got trashed, I made copies of my research. Old school, printed on actual paper. I've got names, dates, locations of all 7 disappearances. If we can find a pattern, figure out why those specific people were targeted, we might find whoever's pulling the strings. Rafe took the paper, scanning the handwritten notes. Then he stopped, blood draining from his face. No. What? These locations. His voice was hoarse. They form a pattern, a sigil. He traced invisible lines connecting the addresses, and even without drawing it, he could see the shape. This is a summoning circle. Someone used those 7 people as anchors to call something through. Call what through? Rafe looked at her, genuine fear in his mismatched eyes. Something old. Something that shouldn't exist anymore. Something that was bound millennia ago specifically because it could end the world if left unchecked. Rafe, you're scaring me. Good. Because we're not just running from Serial anymore. He grabbed the shotgun, checking the chamber. We're running from whatever was summoned. And I have a horrible feeling that whatever it is, it wanted you to investigate. Wanted you to find the pattern. Wanted you to lead me right to it. The windows exploded inward. Glass shattered across the floor in glittering waves. Through the broken frames, something vast and terrible unfolded itself from the darkness. too many limbs and too many eyes, and a voice like grinding continental plates. "Hello, little silencer," it said. "We've been waiting for you." Rafe fired 3 rounds of blessed ammunition before his brain fully processed what he was seeing. The creature didn't flinch. The bullets passed through its form like it was made of smoke, punching holes in the wall behind it that sealed themselves with wet, organic sounds. "Silver won't work, Nephilim." The thing's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, vibrating through Rafe's bones. "Iron won't work. Your pathetic holy water and sanctified salt won't work. I am older than your gods. I was ancient when your bloodlines were designed." Rafe grabbed Iris, pulling her behind him. She was frozen, staring at the creature with a journalist's instinct to document warring against. A human's instinct to run. The thing was still unfolding, taking up more space than the cabin's dimensions should allow, geometry bending wrong around its edges. "What are you?" Iris whispered. "I am Azoth, the prima materia, the original substance from which all things supernatural were birthed." It had too many eyes, all of them fixed on Iris with predatory focus. "And you, little silencer, are the key to my permanent resurrection." Rafe's demonic side was screaming danger. His angelic side was screaming abomination, and for once, they were in complete agreement. Whatever this thing was, it predated the councils, predated the division between angel and demon. It was something from before the rules were written. "The summoning circle," Rafe said, pieces clicking together. "The 7 disappearances. You use them as anchors to breach the veil." "Sacrifices," Azoth corrected. "Willing and unwilling both. Their deaths created fault lines in reality, cracks I could slip through. But it's temporary. Without a proper vessel, I'll be pulled back within 72 hours. Multiple eyes swiveled to focus on Iris. "Unless the silencer bloodline completes the binding." "I'm not binding anything," Iris said. Her voice shook, but held. "I don't even know what that means. Your ancestors did. The original silencers weren't created to hunt Nephilim." Azoth's laugh was like metal scraping metal. "They were created to contain me. A rogue faction of angels, horrified by what the councils had become, tried to summon me as a weapon against both celestial and infernal hierarchies. But they couldn't control me. So they bred humans with null genetics, taught them rituals, gave them the power to bind beings like me into permanent stasis. And you killed them all for it," Rafe said. "Not personally. I was already bound by then, locked in the spaces between spaces. But my followers carried out the purge, hunted every silencer, burned the knowledge, destroyed the rituals." Azoth shifted, and the cabin groaned under impossible weight. "They missed one bloodline. Yours, Iris Fontana. Diluted, untrained, unaware. But the genetic potential remains." Iris's hands were fists at her sides. "If I can bind you, why would I help resurrect you permanently? Because if you don't, I'll kill everyone you've ever known. Every friend, every colleague, every random barista who remembers your coffee order. I'll start with your editor. Tom, isn't it? Lives in Queens with his wife and 2 daughters. Then your coworker who dragged you to that party. Then your landlord. Then the homeless man who sleeps outside your building." The thing's smile was too wide. Too many teeth. "I'll work through your entire social network one by one until you agree to complete the binding, or until you're alone, whichever comes first." "That's not binding," Rafe said. "That's possession. You want to use her as a vessel." "Semantics." Azoth waved a limb dismissively. "The silencer bloodline was designed to contain entities like me. Her body can hold my consciousness permanently without deteriorating. I get a physical form. She gets to continue existing in some diminished capacity. Everyone wins. Except she stops being herself. Again, semantics. She'll be part of something greater. Isn't that what all humans want? Purpose beyond their insignificant mortality?" Those too many eyes fixed on Iris. I'm offering immortality, child. Power beyond anything your species has touched. You could reshape the world, end the Council's tyranny, free the Nephilim from their genetic slavery, burn the whole corrupt system down, and build something new from the ashes. For a horrible second, Rafe saw Iris considering it, saw her journalist's mind calculating whether one life was worth ending millennia of supernatural oppression. Then her expression hardened. No. No? Azoth sounded genuinely surprised. I'm not a vessel. I'm not a weapon. I'm a person. Iris stepped forward, out from behind. Rafe. And I don't care how old you are or how powerful you claim to be. You're not getting my body. The temperature plummeted. Ice formed on the windows, on the walls, spreading in crystalline fractals. Azoth's form solidified slightly, becoming more real, more threatening. Then I'll take it. The thing lunged. Rafe intercepted, letting his angelic side surge forward in a blast of light that should have incinerated anything demonic. Azoth absorbed it like a sponge, laughing. Your light can't hurt me, half-breed. I'm not demon. I'm not angel. I'm what came before both. It batted Rafe aside like he weighed nothing. He crashed through the wall, splintering wood, tasting blood. Iris ran. Not away from the cabin, there was nowhere to run, but toward the cellar stairs. Rafe had shown her the weapons cache. She grabbed an iron chain, not because it would work, but because it was something, wrapping it around her fists as Azoth flowed down the stairs after her. Clever girl. But iron is still. Just matter. I am antimatter to your physics. The thing reached for her with too many hands, and stopped. Azoth's form flickered, wavered. The limbs closest to Iris began dissolving like smoke in wind. What? The creature's voice cracked. What are you doing? I'm standing here. Iris took a step forward. Azoth recoiled. What's wrong? I thought you were older than gods. More powerful than angels and demons combined. Rafe pulled himself from the wreckage, ribs already healing, and understood. The null field. Azoth was supernatural to its core, an entity of pure occult energy, and Iris's null field, weaponized genetics designed specifically to contain beings like this, was anathema to its existence. You can't touch her, Rafe said, limping to Iris's side. She's walking death to anything supernatural, including you. Azoth reformed further back, seething. Temporary setback. I'll simply wait until she sleeps. Humans require rest. I don't. And when her consciousness dims, her field will weaken. Then I'll take what's mine. Or, a new voice said from the shattered doorway, crystalline and cold, I could execute both of them now and solve multiple problems simultaneously. Sariel stepped through the wreckage. The angel enforcer looked almost human. 6 feet tall, silver blonde hair, eyes like winter sky. But the air around him bent wrong, reality struggling to contain something that existed on multiple planes simultaneously. He carried a blade that looked like frozen starlight, humming with power that made Rafe's teeth ache. Sariel, Rafe said carefully, this isn't what it looks like. It looks like you've failed to complete your contract, brought the target to a warded location, and accidentally summoned something from the before times that's attempting to possess her. Sariel's expression didn't change. So unless I'm misunderstanding the situation, this is exactly what it looks like. Azoth laughed. An angel enforcer. How delightful. Tell me, Sariel, do the councils know you've been manipulating contracts to feed me sacrifices? That you're the one who marked these 7 humans for elimination, knowing their deaths would form a summoning circle? The silence was deafening. Iris looked at Sariel with dawning horror. You set this up. The disappearances, the investigation, all of it. You wanted this thing summoned. I wanted the councils destroyed, Sariel said flatly. They've become stagnant, corrupt, more interested in maintaining Power, then maintaining balance. Azoth offered me a way to reset the system. Unfortunately, the creature's requirements proved more complicated than anticipated. He raised the blade, pointing it at Iris. So, I'll settle for preventing its permanent resurrection, which means eliminating the silencer before binding can occur. You'll have to go through me, Rafe said. That was always part of the plan. Sariel moved, faster than thought, blade screaming through air toward Iris's heart. Rafe met him halfway. The impact when their powers collided, angelic and Nephilim, sanctioned and rogue, blew out the remaining windows. They fought with the speed of beings who'd trained for centuries, every move precise and lethal. But Sariel was full angel, undiluted power, and Rafe was half-breed abomination running on borrowed time. He was losing. Sariel's blade carved through Rafe's shoulder, divine fire cauterizing as it cut. The pain was exquisite, absolute. Rafe went down hard, demonic side, screaming for him to heal, angelic side screaming that he deserved this. Rafe! Iris started toward him. Azoth lunged for her from the other direction, betting that proximity to the dying Nephilim would pull her out of defensive position. Everything happened in the space of a heartbeat. Iris grabbed Rafe's hand. The null field expanded, washing over both angel and ancient entity. Sariel's blade flickered. Azoth's form destabilized. And in that moment of weakness, Rafe made a choice. He channeled everything. Angelic light and demonic darkness, 2 centuries of power kept carefully balanced, and let it detonate. No control, no precision. Just raw supernatural energy exploding outward from his core. The cabin disintegrated. Sariel was thrown backward, blade falling from nerveless fingers. Azoth shrieked, form fragmenting, pulled back toward the spaces between spaces by the violent disruption in reality. And Rafe felt something inside him shatter permanently. When the light faded, he was lying in the snow. Iris was beside him, unconscious but breathing. Sariel was gone, either fled or destroyed. Azoth was sealed, at least temporarily, the summoning circle broken by the explosion. But Rafe's vision was fading. The demonic corruption that had been spreading for decades, kept barely in check by angelic counterbalance, was surging unchecked. He'd burned through both sides of his power completely. Nothing left to fight back with. Nothing left to stop the inevitable. He had. Maybe 10 minutes before he went fully feral. Iris's eyes opened. She looked at him, saw the black veins spiderwebbing across his entire body now, and understood. "No," she whispered. "No, we'll figure something out." "There's nothing to figure out." Rafe's voice was rough. "I'm done. This is what happens when Nephilim burn too bright." He managed to smile. "But you're safe. Azoth's sealed, Sariel's gone, contract's void. You get to live." "I don't want to live if it costs you." "You don't get a choice." Rafe pressed something into her hand. A phone number, written on a scrap of paper. "Call this number. It's a Nephilim named Maya. She runs a sanctuary for rogues. She'll keep you safe until you can disappear properly." "Rafe, go." The black veins reached his heart. He could feel consciousness slipping, something ancient and hungry rising to take its place. "Please, I don't want you to see what I become." Iris kissed him one last time. Gentle, final. Then she ran. Iris made it half a mile before she stopped running. Not because she was tired, though her lungs burned and her legs shook, but because leaving Rafe to die alone, transforming into something monstrous in the snow, felt like the worst kind of cowardice. She turned back. The clearing where the cabin had stood was unrecognizable. Trees had been flattened in a perfect circle, snow melted down to scorched earth, the air still shimmering with residual energy. In the center, Rafe knelt in the ash, head bowed, body convulsing. The corruption had spread completely. Black veins covered every visible inch of skin, pulsing with something that looked alive. His eyes when he looked up were both solid black now, No white, no iris, just endless dark. The angelic side had been consumed entirely. What was left was pure demon wearing Rafe's face. "I told you to run," he said. Except it wasn't quite his voice anymore. Deeper, resonant, like multiple voices speaking in harmony. "I don't take orders well." Iris approached slowly, hands raised. "Rafe, if you're still in there..." "He's in here, screaming." The thing wearing Rafe smiled with too many teeth. "But he doesn't have control anymore. I do. The demon he's been fighting for 203 years. And now that the angel is gone, nothing stops me from taking what I want. Which is freedom, power, revenge against the councils who've used us as weapons for millennia." Those black eyes fixed on her. "And you, little silencer, your null field might suppress supernatural powers, but you're still flesh and blood, still breakable." The demon lunged, but it moved wrong, stumbling, fighting against its own body. Rafe's voice broke through, raw and desperate. "Iris, get out of here. I can't hold him much longer." The demon regained control, backhanding Rafe's own face hard enough to split his lip. "Shut up. You lost. Accept it." Iris watched the internal war play out, watched Rafe fight for dominance in his own body, and lose. An idea. Formed, desperate, and probably insane. But she was out of good options, and desperate insanity was all she had left. She walked directly up to the demon, into the null field radius. The effect was immediate. The demon's form flickered, black veins receding slightly. Rafe's eyes cleared for a second, showing confusion and hope and terror all at once. "What are you doing?" both voices asked simultaneously. "Something stupid." Iris placed her hands on either side of Rafe's face, exactly like she had in his apartment a lifetime ago. The null field expanded, pressing against the demonic corruption like immune system attacking infection. The silencer bloodline was designed to contain supernatural entities. You said it yourself. "You can't contain me," the demon snarled. "I'm part of him. You'd have to contain his entire being." "Okay." Iris's voice was steady even as her hands shook. "So I will." She kissed him. The null field didn't just suppress this time. It invaded. Iris felt it. Happening. Felt her genetics activating in ways they'd never been meant to activate without training, without knowledge, without preparation. The silencer abilities written into her DNA responded to desperate need, to proximity, to willingness. She became a container. The sensation was indescribable. Like swallowing fire and ice simultaneously, like housing something vast in a space too small. Like every cell in her body rearranging to accommodate power that shouldn't exist in human form. The demon screamed, pulled from Rafe's body not through exorcism, but through absorption. She drank it down like poison, felt it burn through her system, felt her null field adapt and compress and cage it somewhere deep inside. When she pulled back, gasping, Rafe collapsed. His eyes were gray now, both of them. Human gray. The black veins were gone, the corruption was gone, the demon was gone. Except it wasn't gone. It was in her. Iris could feel it, trapped but conscious, raging against the cage of her genetics. Her null field had become a prison. Supernatural abilities turned inward, creating a binding strong enough to hold something that shouldn't be held. "What did you do?" Rafe's voice was his own again, hoarse with shock. "Iris, what did you do?" "Saved you." She tried to smile, failed. The silencer bloodline was designed to contain entities. Turns out that includes demons, even ones that are part of Nephilim. "But if you're containing my demonic half..." Rafe's expression crumbled. "You've trapped yourself. That thing will try to escape for the rest of your life. You'll never have peace, never be able to let your guard down." "I know." Iris sat down hard in the ash, exhaustion crashing over her. "But you're alive. And you're not corrupted. That's worth it. It's not worth you becoming a prison. Rafe reached for her hands, and she noticed his touch was different now. Warm, but not burning. Present, but not wrong. Human temperature. Human sensation. The demon will fight you constantly. Try to manipulate you, corrupt you from the inside. You can't live like this. Watch me. Iris squeezed his hands. I've spent 17 years investigating impossible things, being told I'm crazy, fighting for truth nobody wanted to hear. This is just one more impossible thing to survive. They sat in the ruins of the cabin as snow began to fall again. Two people who'd been marked for death finding something like hope in the ashes. What happens now? Rafe asked. Sariel might be gone, but the councils will send others. You're still Silencer bloodline. I'm still Nephilim, even if I'm currently running on just the angelic half. We're both targets. So we disappear. Iris pulled out the scrap of paper with Maya's number. You said she runs a sanctuary for rogues. We go there, figure out how to live off the grid, and maybe... She paused. Maybe we find other Nephilim like you. Others who are tired of being weapons. And we build something new. A community of rogues? Why not? The councils have had control for millennia. Maybe it's time for something different. Something where Nephilim aren't slaves, where nulls aren't executed, where the rules are written by the people living under them instead of angels and demons playing chess with mortal lives. Rafe was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, broken and honest. That's the most naive, idealistic, impossible thing I've ever heard. Good. Iris managed a real smile this time. I'm a journalist. Impossible is kind of my specialty. They left the clearing as dawn broke, two fugitives walking toward an uncertain future. Iris could feel the demon inside her, testing boundaries, looking for weaknesses. She pushed back with her null field, felt it compress tighter. It would be a lifelong battle. Some days she'd probably lose ground, but she'd fought her whole life to be believed, to find truth, to survive. This was just one more fight, and she wasn't alone anymore. Rafe walked beside her, and for the first time in 203 years, his head was quiet. No angel screaming righteousness, no demon whispering corruption, just him, singular and whole, figuring out what it meant to be a person instead of a weapon. I need to ask you something, he said as they reached the stolen truck. Okay. The kiss. In the clearing, when you absorbed the demon. Was that strategic or both? Iris unlocked the truck. Needed physical contact for the binding to work, but also wanted to kiss you one more time in case it killed me. Seemed like good last act material. Rafe caught her wrist before she could climb in, turning her to face him. His expression was uncertain, vulnerable in ways she'd never seen. And now? Now that we're both alive and actively fleeing supernatural authorities? Are we... Iris kissed him again. Gentler this time, less desperate. The demon inside her snarled, but she pushed it down. When she pulled back, Rafe was staring at her like she'd rearranged the stars. We're something, she said. Probably complicated, and definitely dangerous, and very likely to get us both killed. But something. If you want. I want. His voice was rough. I've wanted since the moment you looked at my real face and didn't run. Maybe before that. Maybe since you kissed me at midnight and broke my entire world open. Good. Because I contain your demonic half now. We're kind of stuck together. Iris climbed into the truck. Also, I have approximately 6,000 questions about the supernatural world that you're going to answer while we drive. Starting with what Maya's sanctuary is like, and ending with whether vampires are real. Vampires are complicated, Rafe said, sliding into the passenger seat. And Maya's sanctuary is less sanctuary and more armed compound full of paranoid ex-contractors who shoot first and ask questions never. But she's fair, and she doesn't follow council orders. We'll be safe there. For a while, at least. They drove south as the sun rose, leaving the destroyed cabin and their old lives behind. The councils would hunt them. Serial might resurface. Azoth was sealed, but not destroyed. And Iris was carrying a demon inside her that would fight for freedom every second of every day. But they were alive. Together. Free for the first time in their respective lives to choose their own path. 3 months later, Maya's sanctuary had 17 new residents. Nephilim who'd heard through underground networks that there was a place where contracts weren't mandatory, where corruption could be contained, where rogues could exist without constantly looking over their shoulders. Iris documented everything. Not for publication. She'd promised Rafe she wouldn't expose the supernatural world, and she kept her promises. But for record. For proof. For the day when maybe, somehow, the system could be changed from within, instead of burned down from without. Rafe trained the new arrivals, teaching containment techniques, defensive strategies, how to resist council manipulation. His angelic half, no longer fighting demonic corruption, was stronger than it had ever been. Focused, purposeful, and every night, Iris fought the demon trapped inside her. Some nights she won easily, some nights she barely held on. But every morning, Rafe was there, singular and whole and choosing to stay. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was messy and complicated and fraught with danger. But it was real. And for two people who'd spent their lives being told they were impossible, real was more than enough. What would you do if the truth you'd been seeking your entire life came with a price tag of everything you knew? If saving someone meant becoming a prison for darkness itself? Iris chose to carry a demon inside her soul so that Rafe could finally know peace. She traded her freedom for his humanity. And in that impossible choice, she proved that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about choosing someone broken and saying, "Your scars don't scare me, your darkness doesn't define you, and I'll fight beside you, even when the whole world says we're wrong." Sometimes the bravest thing we can do isn't running toward safety. It's standing in the ruins with someone who's lost everything and saying, "We'll build something new together." Rafe spent 200 years being a weapon, following orders, believing that purpose was worth more than freedom. But Iris showed him that true purpose isn't found in obedience. It's forged in the courage to say no more when the system demands your soul. She taught him that being human isn't about perfection or redemption earned through endless suffering. It's about choosing compassion when cruelty would be easier. It's about protecting someone not because you were ordered to, but because they matter. And maybe that's the real question we all face. Are we willing to sacrifice everything familiar for something true? Are we brave enough to love someone when that love makes us fugitives from our own lives? If this story moved you, if it made you question what you'd sacrifice for truth or love or freedom, then share it. Let it reach someone who needs to hear that monsters can choose to be human, that broken people can build beautiful things, and that sometimes the most radical act of rebellion is simply refusing to let the world tell you who you're supposed to be. Hit that like button. Follow for more stories that will wreck you in the best way. And remember, you're not defined by the voices screaming in your head. You're defined by which voice you choose to follow.